He's call in. Let's add him on. All right, joining me right now is from the Show Me State of Missouri. I have Osby Tomlin. He's with me right now. What's going on, man?
Oh, not a whole lot, man. I'm excited to be on the show.
Thank you so much for joining me, and let's go ahead and begin. What made you guys started in wrestling?
Well, honestly, I've been in the on the indie circuit for about 8 years, and I've traveled all throughout the mid South and here recently in the Midwest. And thinking back to the first thing that I ever remember with professional wrestling, I was probably 7 years old, and I went to a buddy of mine's house, and he was watching a VHS tape of The Undertaker. And I kept remember thinking, wow, this guy keeps getting beat up, but he still keeps getting up. And that's what I wanted to do. And here I am today.
And do you remember your first ever match that you ever had?
Oh,
And if so, who's your opponent and what company did you work for?
my first ever wrestling match took place in 2006 in Dyersburg, Tennessee. And my first match, I wrestled against Tim Edwards. He was known as the Real Deal. And it was a mismatch, of course. He weighed probably 320 pounds to my 230 pounds. Um, I hadn't been training too terribly long, and I remember going out to the ring just terrified, absolutely terrified, and he beat the hell out of me. But it was a good learning experience.
I guess the saying goes, sometimes you gotta learn things the hard way, and and from
Right.
what you explained was indeed the hard way. But look at you still wrestling 8 years later, and it just shows that wrestling ain't for everybody. You have to be not physically strong, but you have to be mentally strong just to stick around. And you stuck around. You still doing it, man. And you and any wrestlers out there that are still pursuing this dream should get a lot of credit for it, because I feel like wrestling is one of the most physical sports that any athlete could deal with. And
Right.
and you put your bodies on the line, and just injuries comes into territory. And what I want to ask, as far as injuries, is have you ever endured a severe injury that may have caused your that could have caused your career to end?
Well, actually, that happened earlier this year. I took a bad bump. I was in a match in Tennessee, and a guy picked me up for a body slam, but for some reason, midair, he decided to change the move and drop me in a backbreaker. Well, being the wrestler taking the move, not knowing that you're going to be dropped in a backbreaker complicates things. Um, and it ended up doing some severe damage to my lower spine. And I went to the doctor, and we got it x-rayed, and they told me that, you have two vertebrae that are starting to fuse together, and you've got two bulging discs. He said if you need to retire. So earlier this year, I had to walk away from wrestling. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I was bound and determined, and going through physical therapy and rehab on my lower spine for 3 months, I was able to come back.
Well, talk about overcoming adversity, and for you to deal with that and to overcome it and get back to doing what you do. Again, like I said, I mean, you wrestlers deserve a lot of credit, because this wrestling thing is not easy. It's not as easy as it looks. You have to be properly trained, and you have to perform in front of an audience. And
Right.
there's obviously they're gonna be the fans that cheer for you. There's gonna be those that boo you, and there's those that's just not gonna understand exactly what wrestling is and what it's all about. And unless they watch the indie show or watch it on TV, they probably never gonna quite understand. And there may be some misconception of what wrestling is.
Right.
I consider it a sport. People say sports entertainment. I call it sport. You know, then and of course you guys do entertain. You know,
Right.
but in the end, you put maneuvers together. And I mean, what do you feel like? What do you consider the biggest misconception of wrestling? The one thing that kind of makes you irritated, or what people feel about what wrestling is?
Well, it's a common question that I get all the time when people say, "Oh, you're a wrestler." I'm like, "Yes, sir, I am." They say, "Oh, isn't that play fighting, or isn't it fake, or don't you guys go out there? You don't really get hit, or you don't get beat up." And normally, the way I respond to that is listing my massive list of injuries that I've taken over the last 8 years. And I tell them, I'm like, when you fall down, does it hurt? And they say, yes, sir, it does. And I said, what's any different from that than what we do in the ring? We put our bodies through physical hell to entertain the fans. Everything in wrestling hurts. You think falling down flat on your back doesn't hurt? It does. It doesn't matter if it's on the ground or if it's in a wrestling ring or it's on the floor. And those, anytime we get hit with weapons, that hurts. When we get punched in the face, if there's a missed timing, it really hurts. There's so many aspects to wrestling, and people often overlook that. They think, oh, anybody can do that. No, not anybody can do it. In order to be successful in professional wrestling, you have to be able to wrestle. You have to be able to be in front of a live crowd. You have to be able to actually go out there and do these maneuvers and not be shy. I mean, I've wrestled in front of anywhere from 10 people to 2,000 people. You have to be prepared, and you have to be a good actor. You know, some of the best in-ring technicians can go out there. If you can't put on a good show, then it's not going to matter. But coming back to your question, the most common misconception is that, oh, you don't really get hurt, or why do you enjoy going out there and not really fighting? And a lot of people don't really understand, and they don't appreciate what we do.
I feel like I guess the misconception for me is the physicality or the lack thereof. And I watched it. I watched it in person. Whether I watched an indie show, I watched a WWE show, Impact show. People, I watch it up close. I see the contact, and people do get hit. People do get hurt, and there's bodies all over the place, and and there's always going to be people that don't understand what wrestling is, and as but I feel like those that understand it is going to always outweigh those that don't understand it. Wrestling has been going on for forever, and it will continue to go on for as long as we live. And that just, I guess that's what it boils down to. Now, I first heard of you because I don't know if you was able to listen to the interview. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I did an interview with Paris Kelly a few weeks ago. She is the new Misfit Wrestling Alliance champion. That's a
So
company,
women's champion, yes.
and I believe you work for that company as well. Talk a little bit about this organization and what do they bring to the table.
Well, I'm actually the former Misfit Wrestling Alliance heavyweight champion. I was actually their first champion. And the Misfit Wrestling Alliance is basically like a smaller version of the National Wrestling Alliance. And the way that works is there are 5 or 6 companies in the Mid-South that have joined forces, and they have a recognized heavyweight champion, recognized tag team champions, and a recognized women's champion. And what the Misfit Wrestling Alliance does is they promote all the promotions that are affiliated with them on their website and on their Facebook page. And they also have a YouTube show. I think they have 5 episodes out now, all of which are over an hour long. Pretty good stuff. But yeah, currently the heavyweight champion is Psycho, really big guy. He actually beat me for the title. The tag team champions are NRG, Anton LaVey and Ricky Andrews, and the women's champion is Paris Kelly.
So, Osby, you have any upcoming shows, appearances you want to promote as we get near the end of the year?
Well, going to the end of the year, not particularly. I just recently relocated to St. Louis, and I'm currently still getting settled, so I canceled some of the bookings that I had coming up for next month. But my next biggest show that's going to be going on is going to be in Tuckerman, Arkansas on February the 28th, and it will be a benefit show with the Misfit Wrestling Alliance. They're going to be raising money for Vanderbilt University's Department of Neonatology. And neonatology is the study of premature births and premature birth defects, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, everybody, please check out the shows that he mentioned, and not just this year, but next year. But if you're a wrestling fan, please check out your local wrestling shows. And I think what very disappoints me is that people get so caught up into watching the wrestling on TV that they don't realize that they are wrestling at their home, at their cities, at their state,
Right.
and majority of the wrestlers from WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, majority of them, I'm not saying all of them, but majority of them got their start in the indies. You have to start somewhere before you get into the pros. So,
Right.
uh, please check out your local shows. Who knows? You may see the next big star at why they ain't near your hometown. So not just this year, but moving forward, if you're a wrestling fan, please check out your local wrestling shows and support these guys and gals, cause they they could be the next big stars. You never know. Just check these guys out, and you won't be disappointed. I asked my first guest, Craig, this earlier in the show, and I'll go ahead and ask you this as well. As we
Okay.
enter the new year 2015, what do you want to, as a wrestling fan, what do you want to see more of? It could be like maybe more gimmicks or more chances or risk or whatever the case may be, whether it's the indies, whether it's the pros. Exactly what do you want to see more of in 2015 in wrestling?
I would actually like to see more exposure for some of the smaller companies. Like you said, there's indie wrestling everywhere, and indie wrestling is the lifeblood of professional wrestling. It's all the same thing. It's all professional wrestling. But wrestling in front of a crowd of 40 people is way different from wrestling in front of a crowd of 20,000. But it's still the same thing. You're still out there to put on a show, and getting more exposure for some of these smaller companies would be fantastic for some of the up-and-coming wrestlers. For example, Ring of Honor is one of the top companies in the world, but it's still considered one of the larger indie companies in North America. Look what happened to them earlier this week. Alberto Del Rio, recently renamed El Patron, officially signed with them. That's fantastic news for Ring of Honor. That's fantastic news for indie wrestling. And you also have these other new shows coming up like Lucha Underground. That's great for the wrestling industry. More shows, more exposure for some of the smaller companies, that would be great for wrestling as a whole.
I'm definitely starting to hear more from the Lucha shows, getting quite the exposure, and I haven't had a chance to watch a show yet, but I've heard some good reviews over it. So eventually, I'll definitely plan to check it out. I do hear it is on Wednesdays, about an hour before Impact,
Hmm.
especially as they make the move to their new home. In 2015, SmackDown's going back to Thursday nights. A lot of changes in the wrestling world into the new year, and I, I I definitely agree with you in that as well. Some exposure from uh, the local companies, up and coming companies, if you will. And I did not know that Derek Wheel is not with Ring of Honor now until you just pointed it out. So I definitely
Yes,
gotta check
sir.
out Derek Wheel, man. I know it's been a while since his unfortunate termination under the
Right.
circumstances that he definitely put himself in. As far as what I want to see more, I said this to Craig and I'll say it here. Um, I definitely want to see NXT continue to evolve. I mean, there's a lot of promising talent there. Sami Zayn, Neville, Kevin Owens, now formerly known as Kevin Steen. You got Fergal Devitt. You got Hideo Itami. NXT competition is looking real good, and dare I say, it's more compelling wrestling than Raw and SmackDown. And yet, it's
Oh,
on the network and it's not on national television.
I
So,
completely agree. The I prefer to watch NXT over Monday Night Raw just because of the show that they put on.
and I currently the show is in progress right now, so we're doing this live broadcast. But
Right.
and I haven't been to tell you the truth, I haven't been able to watch NXT since the football season started. Once football is
Sure.
on, I'm gonna put wrestling to the back burner. At least NXT to the back burner. Luckily, I have the network, so I can recap all that stuff once the regular season ends, and then I'll get caught up. But that's I just want to see NXT to continue to evolve. I mean, look at the people that has come out there over the last several years, for the
Right.
Wyatts to Ambrose to Reigns to Rollins, and just it's Daniel Bryan. You know, it's a plethora of guys that's definitely already household names or on the verge of being household names. So I guess that's what I want to see more of. And my last question for you is, what would your advice be to anyone out there that wants to become wrestlers, want to aspire to be wrestlers? What would your advice be?
Well, first of all, if you aspire to be a wrestler, aspire to get in as best shape as possible. Go out there, and if you're passionate about wrestling, be passionate about the business and respect it by going to the ring dressed properly with proper looking gear. Try your best to get into shape, look like a wrestler. And my second piece of advice would be to don't be afraid to reach out to any local indie promotions. Yeah, it's a small indie promotion, but you've got to start somewhere. More than likely, there'll be someone there who can properly train you. And also make sure you have proper training. Don't get fooled into paying $200 or $300 to bump around in a ring for a couple of weeks and then call yourself a wrestler. Make sure you go through proper training. The last thing the business of professional wrestling needs is for a young green kid to go out to the ring and get hurt because he wasn't properly trained.
Well, Osby, it was great chatting with you. I want to thank you for being on the show this evening. Continued success to you, and happy holidays. And again, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you, man. You have a good evening.
You too. That was Osby.